NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over when the Nets just can't play. What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bring your latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. All right, so look, I'm going to keep this episode actually probably pretty short and simple, at least by my standards, because usually these NetsBoy episodes are like 20 minutes at least. But look, the Nets the last 5 games went 2-3, and it was exactly what I was afraid was going to happen. They did manage to at least win the first 2 games against the Raptors and then the Pacers, because I said the Nets had to win those games, because they did. But then, of course, because of, Kevin Durant obviously can't play back-to-backs, they lost to the Trailblazers, really got blown out in that game. It was predictable. I mean, that game was predictable, the Trailblazer game. No Durant, just Kyrie and the gang, not enough firepower. Portland is literally playing for their lives right now, because right now they're in the play-in games in the Western Conference. I think they're the 7th seed. They're in the play-in tournament, which they don't want to be in. They're trying to battle for the 6th seed. So it was just as clear as day that the Nets were going to lose that game. Watching that game, I'm like, they have no chance. And they didn't. They got blown out, and it was like, whatever. But then they have the back-to-back games against the Bucks. And I said, I touched upon it in my last NetsBoy episode, this is critical. This Nets team is going to probably, the way everything is going, most likely run into this Bucks team probably in the second round of the playoffs if everything continues the way it is. And this was a chance for the Nets to kind of show that, hey, you know what? We are legit. But instead, they lose both games. And, I know something. Kevin Durant was great in both of those games. Kyrie was great in the second game. But there's something that's very clear to me. It's something that's very obvious to me, these last stretch of games from the Nets. And, it's been obvious for a while now. But I think it's time to really just simply say out loud what we've already known for the longest time. The Nets do not care about the regular season. They don't. It's obvious. We already knew it. People touch upon it all the time. They don't care. Steve Nash doesn't really care. Kevin Durant doesn't really care. Kyrie Irving doesn't really care. Sean Marks probably doesn't even really care. James Harden doesn't really. No one really cares about what happens these last stretch of games, because it's all about getting healthy. It's all about getting ready for the playoffs, and then the Nets are going to magically flip a switch, and they're going to go on this ridiculous run and win a championship. That's what's supposed to happen. And you want to know something? I understand why that's their mentality. We see this all the time. You know what this is called? This is called the LeBron James tactics. It's what LeBron James has done basically for the last 15 years of his career, right? He when he's on a great team, he kind of coasts through the regular season. And not like he doesn't try or anything, but he doesn't exert all his energy and stuff. And he gets to the postseason. He gets through the regular season, gets to the postseason. His team is like a top 4 seed, and then boom, playoff LeBron kicks in, and he takes his game to the next level, and next thing you know, his teams are going to the NBA Finals. And, that narrative was really started by LeBron James. I mean, he's the first player that I can really imagine that had that kind of switch. Like, even the great players before him, like Kobe Bryant and especially Michael Jordan, they dominated in the regular season. Shaquille O'Neal, they guys dominated in the regular season. They wanted to dominate in the regular season because they wanted to establish themselves as some of the greatest players in the league. But LeBron comes in and he just says, hey, you know what? I'm one of the best players of all time myself, but I don't have to, I'm so good, I'm just not going to exert all my energy, and we're still going to win, be a top 3 seed, and then I'll turn it on. Well, this is the same mentality the Nets have, and it's very clear that this is what they're trying to do. And like I said, it's not like they're not trying. I don't want to sit here and say the Nets aren't trying. They are trying. But you could tell, especially in that Bucks game, and of course in the Trailblazers game, just how much more the other team wanted to win. Hustle plays are the biggest differences between teams that want to win and teams that would like to win. And the Nets are a team that's just like, you know what? We'd like to win, but we don't want to exert our guys too much. We don't want to risk injury. We don't want to, do something that we shouldn't do just for the sake of winning this regular season game. And look, like I said, I get it. I understand it. It's a fine philosophy. But let me just tell you this. The Nets better make it to the NBA Finals if they're going to go through this tactics. They better have a fully healthy James Harden, a fully healthy Kevin Durant, and a fully healthy Kyrie Irving throughout the entire playoffs because of all this resting. All right, especially Kevin Durant, all this not playing in the back-to-backs. I will tell you this right now. If Kevin Durant gets hurt in the playoffs and misses extended time, I think that Steve Nash should be fired. I do. Because all this management, these minutes management is not playing on the back-to-back. What good will it be if Kevin Durant gets hurt? So Kevin Durant better play every freaking playoff game and play 40 minutes in every playoff game come this season because it's clear that the tactics is not let Durant play and back-to-backs. By the way, the Nets have 2 more back-to-backs in the last 6 games of the season. So that means we're only going to see Durant in 4 more games probably. And it's just, I'm just telling you, I'm just saying it right now. The second that guy gets hurt in the playoffs, I'm going to blow up. And if he doesn't get hurt, then okay, that's great. Same thing with James Harden. They're taking it easy with James Harden. I get it. He's got a hamstring injury, this and that. He plays regularly. He better not get hurt in the postseason when he comes back. They're not going to rush him back. That's what they said. They're not going to rush him back. Okay, good. When he comes back, he better not get hurt. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And that, like I said, the Bucks game just really frustrated me, especially the second one. I think Steve Nash doesn't know what he's doing with this rotation with everyone being back relatively healthy, right? In that last game against the Bucks, everyone's back except for Chris Chioza, who probably won't be back, Dinwiddie, and James Harden. And let me just ask this quick question. And his explanation was, we want to ramp him up. Why the hell was Nicholas Claxton not playing more than like 3 minutes in this game? I understand he come back from protocol, said he hadn't had a lot of playing time, and so Steve Nash wanted to keep his minutes down. But if there's anyone who can guard Giannis, just in general, other than Kevin Durant, I think Kevin Durant is hands down the best suitable player to guard Giannis because he's built similar to Giannis and vice versa. But Nicholas Claxton is the next best option. So why is he playing 3 minutes in this game? Why do we have to constantly Blake Griffin get completely dominated or DeAndre Jordan falling down because he can't guard the speed of Giannis? And why do the Nets continue just to sag off Giannis and let him shoot these threes? I get it. He's not a great three-point shooter. But guess what? He's shooting 37% this year, so he's a capable three shooter, and you're just going to sit there and let him shoot and not even try to close out? Of course he's going to make it. Are you that afraid of him putting the ball on the floor and finishing at the basket that you want to give him those threes? I get it. That's the strategy. But you want to know something? If you got good defensive players like Kevin Durant, like Nicholas Claxton, who can guard his perimeter, you can guard him and kind of close out on him and then stay with him. And you want to know something else? Let the other guys beat you. That's the thing that got me so angry in that Bucks game. Giannis dominated. And, it was like the big three of the Bucks, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Giannis just dominating, and everyone else was just kind of there. Let other guys, let DiVincenzo beat you. Let Pat Connaughton beat you. Let Brook Lopez beat you, which, by the way, I don't like this version of Brook Lopez. He's just like an irrelevant player now. I guess, he is like 32 now. He's getting up there in the years, but it's just weird watching Brook Lopez be never getting the ball in the post or getting 1 or 2 post touches when he was a net. He was that's all the Nets did. But anyway, beside the point. Let those guys beat you. Stop letting Giannis shoot open shots. Stop letting Chris Middleton get to his spots. Stop letting Drew Holiday penetrate. Collapse. Or better yet, throw a double team at Giannis. Make someone else. Hopefully, Steve Nash understands this and the Nets understand this. And when the Nets, and I'm saying when because I'm almost positive the Nets will run into the Bucks in the playoffs now because I'm pretty sure the Nets are going to be either the 2 or 3 seed. I don't think they got a shot at the 1 seed now. When they do play the Bucks, I hope Steve Nash and the Nets process this and figure out the best way to beat them, because what we saw was just terrible. And it was the same story like always. Nets couldn't get an offensive rebound, so DeAndre Jordan's on the bench, right? Because, once again, the best rebounding player you've got doesn't play, yet a bunch of offensive boards. A lot of logic, right? I got an idea. Where the hell was Alize Johnson? He is the best rebounder on the Nets. You trying to tell me that you couldn't put Alize Johnson in to get a damn rebound at the end of the game when the Bucks had like 4 or 5 consecutive offensive rebounds? And also, the Alize Johnson type of situation, he's energy. The Nets were clearly being outplayed, out-hustled. What took so long for Steve Nash to go with Bruce Brown? Bruce Brown didn't even play in the first half. The best energy players the Nets have are Alize Johnson and Bruce Brown and Nicholas Claxton. And one of those guys didn't play. The other guy played for 3 minutes, and the other guy didn't play until the second half. How does that make any sense? Yeah, we got Landry Shamet going 1 for 8, shooting, taking dumb shots. And then DeAndre Jordan, who, by the way, is a decent rebounder. Yes, he didn't look good at all in this game. I get it. He's on the bench, too. But we got to see a whole big dose of Blake Griffin, who had to not have a good game. That's the solution when you have other options. It's frustrating. It's sometimes I feel like Steve Nash really doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And I know if I was coaching, I would have had Alize Johnson and Bruce Brown play nonstop in that second half. Every time that the Bucks had showed more energy and more toughness, those two guys would have been out there. I would have played Claxton at least 15 minutes to guard Giannis more and more. I think Giannis was 0-2 when Claxton was on him. Not that was a big sample size, but that's what I would have done. I would have played less Shamet, less Jordan, and less Blake Griffin down the stretch. And really even less Jeff Green. Jeff Green didn't have a good game either. And, like, I don't know. It's just frustrating. It's just frustrating because it's the same stuff. Tons of turnovers, too. Nets constantly turn the ball over, especially down the stretch. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving decided that, hey, we've been great all game. Let's just stop making shots and start giving the ball to the other team. And that's another thing that always happens. You know, bad turnovers, inability to get a defensive rebound, poor rotation by Steve Nash, not playing with enough energy and toughness. It's the concerns that I have. And once again, all of this can be summed up to one major topic. Nets don't care about the regular season. And we know it. So that's all I really have to say in this episode. It's just a fact. Nets don't care. We can tell. And I don't want to ever hear them say, oh, no, we care. We want to win. We want to. No, you don't. You just want to show up to the playoffs and switch a switch, which is fine. As long as the Nets win in the playoffs, I'll be okay. But it's just frustrating to watch because you want to know something? We've never seen this from this team. This is what's upsetting me as a Nets fan. I have never seen a Nets team mail it in. Never. Even when they won 12 games, 7, 8, 9 years ago, that team was still played hard every game. Under Kenny Atkinson, this team played hard because they were always the underdog, and I get it. So for me, it's weird to see this team go from a team that always played hard because they're the underdog to a team that's just kind of coasting because they're just that much better than everyone and that they don't really care what happens. So for me, I don't like it because I'm not used to seeing it. I'll probably get over it when the playoffs come and I start seeing the toughness and energy and passion that the Nets should have. It's just weird. And, my whole thing is if you're gonna play like this, you should at least try by playing your energy guys. And look, Durant and Kyrie had great games, especially in the second one. And in some ways that was a bad thing. The second game against the Bucks, I'll say this. It's kind of my fear about what happens when the Nets all are healthy, with James Harden too. And this is what a lot of people talk about. It became the Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant show. And it really affected the rest of the guys. Joe Harris wasn't involved in the offense. Shamet wasn't involved in the offense. Jeff Green wasn't involved in the offense. Blake Griffin wasn't really involved in the offense. So that is another underlining factor of why this team didn't really play with the same amounts of energy and toughness because those guys weren't really involved on the offensive end. And, Shaquille O'Neal puts it best. He says, got to let the other guys eat too. And this is one of the concerns that I think a lot of people have about the Nets, and it's one of my concerns too. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and James Harden, when he comes back, are so amazingly talented and great players that it literally is going to affect the rest of the guys. And that's the chemistry issue that people are worried about with this Nets team. It's not will Kyrie, KD, and James Harden be able to play together. No, it's what's going to happen to Joe Harris when those guys are in. What's going to happen to Jeff Green, Landry Shamet, Blake Griffin. Those guys who need to normally be involved in the offense, what's going to happen to them? And, I didn't like it. And so in some ways, the fact that Durant and Kyrie were played so well, especially Durant, who's like ridiculous, especially in the first Bucks game where he dropped 40-something points but still lost because Giannis dropped like 49, it sometimes backfires. And it's just a concern that I have, and the only way to get past that is to play guys like Alize Johnson, Bruce Brown, Nicholas Claxton, guys who are willing to come in and play with tons of energy, because those energy guys will play hard regardless of what happens on the offensive, defensive end. That's who they are. So that's my rant on that. Let's look at the next couple games for the Nets. I don't even really care because, like I said, the Nets don't care about the regular season. But let's see. They're only a game and a half up on now on the Bucks, who, by the way, now the Bucks have the tiebreaker. So there's a possibility the Nets could screw this up and drop to the 3 seed. But let's see. So they got the Mavericks next on Thursday. Tough game. Mavericks, once again, like Portland, is currently in that play-in situation. They're trying to get out of it. They're going to play like there's no tomorrow. Let's see if the Nets care. I don't think so. So who knows what's going to happen there. Then they got the Nuggets. Nuggets are a playoff team. They're not in the play-in situation, but still, at least I don't think they're in the play-in situation. Hold on. They're not in the play-in situation, are they? No, they're the 3 seed. So they're not in the play-in situation. So, but still, anything can happen. Then they got the Bulls, and then the Spurs, and then the Bulls again, and then the Cavaliers. And you should say, well, the Nets should win at least 4 of the next 6 games, because those last 4 games should all be wins. But you got to remember something. The Bulls and Spurs games are on a back-to-back. So there's not going to be Kevin Durant, because the Nets don't care about the regular season. And then the last games of the season, the Bulls and the Cavs game, the other Bulls and the Cavs game, is also on a back-to-back. So Durant's not going to play in one of those games either. So the Nets are probably going to lose 4 of the next 6 games. I'm being honest. I think the Nets are going to lose to the Mavericks because they're not going to play as hard as the Mavericks. I think they're going to lose to the Nuggets because the Nuggets are just that kind of good of a team, and the Nets are going to mail it in. They're going to win one of the 2 games, whichever one Durant plays against the Bulls and the Spurs, and then they'll win one of those 2 games between the Bulls and the Cavs, but they'll lose the rest. I'm almost calling it. I'm calling a 2-4 stretch last 6 games, and that will probably put the Nets, by the way, in the 3 seed, because the Bucks and the 76ers have a much easier schedule than the Nets in the last couple games. They're playing like all teams that are in the bottom half of the league. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh. It's just I'm very discouraged from these last 3 games of the Nets and just the evidence of this arrogance. It's arrogance to me to see this team not play hard, to see this team turn the ball over, to see this team rest players when there's really no reason to be rest. Why is Claxton playing 3 minutes? That doesn't make sense. Ramping up his activity. Play the guy. He's your best defensive player. He's statistically the best defensive player. Which takes me to my final point. I think it's funny how I said this is going to be a fast episode, and here we are nearing already 19 minutes. My final point. This is my final point. I promise I'll shut up after this. I mentioned in my last NetsBoy episode that at the end of the day, the Bucks scare me more than the 76ers. And what we saw in this game, in these last 2 games, is exactly why. The 76ers are a great team. They're probably going to be the 1 seed. Joel Embiid should be the MVP, in my opinion. He's great. But the reality is, if there's any team that can match up with the Nets, blow by blow, player to player, it is the Bucks. Joel Embiid against the Nets will dominate. Joel Embiid will drop 40 points, have 15 rebounds, and be a force. But you want to know something? I still think the Nets would win that game or win that series, because who else is going to step up for the 76ers? I'm not sold on Ben Simmons. I don't think he has a good offensive game. He's a good player. He's a good facilitator. He's a great defender, but he's not someone I trust to make a big shot down the stretch. You got to trust Tobias Harris. He's historically known to be someone who doesn't step up down the stretch. So who on the 76ers do I really fear other than Embiid? And you want to know something? Let Embiid get his 40 points. I think the Nets will win. I honestly think that if the Nets play the 76ers, it'll be a 6-game series. I really do. I think a fully healthy Nets team, just too much offensive firepower, and the 76ers will not, on a regular basis, be able to match it. So it still would be a tough series, and it would be an interesting series, but I'm not afraid of 76ers. But the Bucks have Giannis, who's probably the only player in the NBA who can probably guard Kevin Durant pretty well one-on-one. Heck, we saw that in the first matchup. He blocked, Kevin Durant. Everyone talks about how Kevin Durant's unguardable. Giannis blocked him. Giannis is 6'11", just like Kevin Durant. He's long and athletic, just like Kevin Durant. So if there's anyone who can guard Kevin Durant or make it hard on Kevin Durant, it's Giannis. And if there's anyone who's going to make it hard on Kyrie Irving, it's Jrue Holiday, who's one of the best on-the-ball defenders in the league. And if there's anyone else who's going to make it hard on James Harden, it's Chris Middleton, who's a very underrated defender as well. Oh, and by the way, is there anybody else who's going to make it hard on the Nets getting on the boards? Is apparently everyone on the Bucks, because they're all good at getting boards. Oh, and they also have Brook Lopez, who's one of the best help defenders in the league. He had 5 blocks in the first matchup and 3 in the second. Brook Lopez is an interior nightmare in the defensive end. And then let's not forget about those same players I just talked about on the offensive end. The Bucks clearly have the most complete roster in the NBA, in my opinion. They have the best two-way players. They have guys who can score, guys who can shoot the 3-ball like that Forbes guy who just never misses. Pat Connaughton, Forbes, DiVincenzo, they all great 3 shooters. Brook Lopez can stretch the floor and hit the 3. Giannis can apparently make the 3. Chris Middleton is a great 3-point shooter. Jrue Holiday's a great playmaker. They're so complete. And their defensive personnel can match the offensive firepower of the Nets and make this Nets elite offense into a good offense. And that's how good the Nets offense is. They would be a good offensive team. But the Bucks are just as capable on any given night of scoring or even outscoring the Nets, even when they're fully healthy. That is why I am more afraid of this Bucks team, because their personnel matches the Nets just as well, and they're the most complete team in the league. There really is no true flaw with the Milwaukee Bucks. They're the number 7 team defensively and the number 1 team offensively, and their defense, by the way, has only gotten better in the second half of the season. So they're the team I'm afraid of more than the 76ers. That being said, I still think the Nets should still beat them in a 7-game series, but it's why I'm not thrilled about how the seedings are lining up. Because if the Nets lose in the second round, it's going to be a disaster. But anyway, the only thing that the Nets got going for them, or the only negative that for the Bucks really, is that historically the Bucks have always been a team that choked in the playoffs. And we'll see if that still happens. But anyway, that's it. Let me know what you guys think. Short episode. My butt. Over 23 minutes now. I get carried away. What can I say? Let me know what you guys think about the fact that the Nets clearly don't care about the regular season, that they're clearly dogging it in, about the fact that Durant's probably only going to play 4 of the next 6 games, the possibility the Nets fall into the 3 seed. If you agree with me that the Milwaukee Bucks are the team that I'm more fearful and pose more of a threat to the Nets than the 76ers, let me know what you think. And keep your eyes open to the next NetsBoy, which might actually be at the end of the season. I'll see if I can try to get an episode in there, here and there. But there's a possibility I might just say, hey, let me just wait until the end of the season and do an end-of-the-season wrap-up. So we'll see what happens. So until the next NetsBoy episode, this is Nets being a boy. This is NetsBoy. I don't know what the hell I'm saying. And signing off.